welcome back to Locked and Loaded in Las Vegas. Today we're going to be looking at the Mul-T-Lock NE14H. It's got a hardened steel body, a Mul-T-Lock interactive+core. There's a nice thick shutter to protect it from the elements, which also makes it difficult to get our picks in there. It's got a boron alloy shackle that's pretty thick, and it is closed shroud, so it has the protection over it. It's got 5 pin-in-pin pins, and it also features this interactive element, which is just a little button I'm going to have to depress once we get it picked. The locking mechanism for this lock is going to feature 2 ball bearings, so it's not shimmable. Usually it features this red bumper, but unfortunately, due to the heat here in Vegas, it cracked on me. So it did look really nice when it was on. I like the black and red, but it's cracked, so it's going to have to stay off for at least this video until I can fix it. Alright guys, let's get started. So while I'm picking this lock, we're going to talk about the roller coaster at the Sahara Hotel. Now, I have zero recollection of this thing, which is weird because it was a dominant feature of the landscape for a long time. And while I didn't actually move to Vegas until after it was torn down, I did visit many times in the years that it was active, so it's very strange to me that I have no memory of ever seeing this thing in action, or even just seeing the roller coaster exist. Alright, got a little bit of core rotation. What's weird to me is even my wife and her family have no recollection of it either, so I'm not the only one. And it was a very dominant feature, like I said, so it's strange that people can't remember it being there. So, Sahara Hotel has a very long history. It's one of the oldest hotels on the Strip. It was a very old hotel, and we're not going to go back that far. We're just going to pick up in 1995 when the Sahara Hotel was purchased by Bill Bennett. Mr. Bennett was a huge fan of auto racing. In fact, a few years before, he had personally financed the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, which is still in existence today, and it's still used to host huge racing events such as NASCAR. But he built that. It was later purchased from him. He went on to buy the Sahara Hotel, and he wanted to feature an auto racing attraction within his hotel. And one of the things he did was he spent $15 million on an IndyCar simulator, and then he decided to add a NASCAR cafe. Alright, I dropped into a deeper false set here. Sports-themed restaurants were pretty popular with ESPN Zone and restaurants like that. They ended up going out of business later on. They just never changed the menu and people got tired of the food, but at the time they were still pretty popular. Alright, we're in an even deeper false set now. One thing they had was a 6-pound burrito they would call the Bomb, and it was sold for $20. If you finished it, you get a t-shirt and an unlimited pass to ride the roller coaster that was connected. If you failed to eat the whole thing in one sitting, they would make you take a picture wearing a pink shirt labeled Certified Weenie. I thought that was pretty funny. The roller coaster opened in April 2000. It was originally scheduled for March 2000, which was the same opening day as the NASCAR Cafe. It was delayed by a month. It opened in April. The roller coaster was designed by Premier Rides, and this was going to be the first roller coaster they made with a loop in it. Alright, I'm going to go in from the right side of the pins and see if I can get a better angle on these inner pins. Premier Rides had built about 9 roller coasters up until this point, and none of them featured a loop. So this was their first. It operated until May 1st, 2011, so 11 years, and that was when the Sahara was sold and became the SLS Hotel. It still stood for a little while. It was finally dismantled in 2012, and it still remains in storage at what was supposed to be Akita Plaza. And it was supposed to be reconstructed there, but Akita Plaza never got off the ground. It was supposed to be a shopping center across from Mandalay Bay, but it was never constructed, so the roller coaster was never constructed either. And it actually still is sitting in a dirt lot in that spot. Alright, let's check this interactive element. No, not quite ready yet. If you look on Google Maps, which I'll put a picture in the screen here, you can still see the dismantled roller coaster sitting in the dirt. So what was this roller coaster? The station was connected to the NASCAR Cafe. It was indoors, The entire roller coaster was meant to be indoors when they first designed it, but they changed the design when Premier Rides took over and made it both interior and exterior. So you would start inside. The loading station was indoors. You would get in the roller coaster train, and it would launch you out of the station at 0 to 45 miles an hour in 2 seconds. Once you exited the building, you would turn left and dive down into a tunnel. The tunnel was 112 feet, and it launched into a 92-foot loop. So as you came out of the tunnel, you went into the loop. After the loop, it featured another accelerator, which would accelerate you to 70 miles an hour, which is actually the fastest roller coaster on the Las Vegas Strip. That holds true until this day. No roller coaster had reached that speed, even now. Once it accelerated to 70 miles an hour, it would hit an S-curve near the marquee, and then it would go up a vertical tower to a height of 224 feet. Once it reached the top of that tower, it would roll backwards down the tower and complete the track in reverse. When it hit the second accelerator, that accelerated you to 70 miles an hour going forward. Alright, everything feels set. Let's try the interactive element. And we are open. It would slow you down and function as a decelerator at that point, and slow you down back to 45 so that you hit the loop at the same speed both directions. But you're still going to the loop in reverse. Once through the loop, you continue back around the curve, re-enter the building, and that'll be the end of the ride. The entire ride would last 45 seconds, and you had to pay for each ticket on each turn on the ride. It ended up being wildly popular. People were very disappointed when the hotel was sold, and the new ownership decided to go in a more adult-themed route. Not to say adult-themed as in strip clubs, just bars and all that stuff, but they didn't want ride attractions to still be present at the hotel. They wanted a more sophisticated style of hotel, so they decided not to have that roller coaster anymore. So they decommissioned it and then decided to take it out. Eventually, the SLS, which is what the Sahara became after it was sold to another company who renamed it the Sahara. At that time, people got excited and asked whether or not the roller coaster would be brought back, but unfortunately, this company also said that this is a new era for the Sahara Hotel, and they will not be re-adding the roller coaster. So, in, I believe it was 2019, part of the roller coaster was sold for scrap, so it is official that the roller coaster will not be rebuilt anywhere, unfortunately. So it had an opportunity with Akita Plaza. It had a second opportunity when the hotel became the Sahara again, but unfortunately, it has seen its last days back in 2012. An interesting fact about that is that it was built in 2000, decommissioned in 2011, and torn down in 2012. So that means it has now served half of its life sitting in a dirt lot, being unused and disassembled. In the last video, we talked about the ships at the Treasure Island that sit in the bay in front of the hotel, where tourists can come, look at them, take pictures. I think that's a little bit more dignity than being disassembled and sitting in a dirt lot, unused. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear in the comments section if any of you remember riding it or seeing it at least. So give me your stories. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about the roller coaster at the Sahara Resort and all its history. But we're going to get into disassembling this lock now. So we'll be talking about the pins as long as I use the key in the right side of the lock. Guess I should focus on what I'm doing, huh? Alright, let's get this plug out. Alright guys, let's take a look at the key pins here. There's number 1, number 2, inner and outer, number 3, inner and outer, 4, inner and outer, and number 5. 5 is a little bit strange because it not only has the inner pin, but the outer pin is actually a 2-part pin. So there's the upper and the lower. Alright, let's get these all oriented correctly. These are all standard key pins and standard inner drivers, besides the one in number 5, which is the 2-part outer with the inner driver. Alright, now that we have these all oriented, let's see what is going on up in the Bible. Alright, number 1 is spooled inner with a spooled outer. Two is a spooled inner with a standard outer. 3 is a spooled inner with a spooled outer. 4 spooled inner, spooled outer. 5 get these springs out of here. They're sticking up just enough to mess with my tweezers. And 5 is a spooled inner and more or less a standard outer, but it's got one single serration right along the center line. Let's get these all oriented. Or, I'm sorry, let's take a look real quick. So it's hard for me to get this camera to focus, but there is counter milling within the key pin, and what that does is it'll hook the spooled inner driver pins. As you can see, it's providing some resistance. Now what that'll do is your picking is normally you get counter rotation with the spools, which you'll still get, but when it gets to that ledge, it'll be an abrupt stop, and it becomes difficult to get the inner spool to clear that milling edge and get a full set. So if you're giving too much tension, it's just going to lock up, and then if you make the tension too light, you're going to drop some pins back down. So you have to get the tension just right to clear that milling, and it becomes a delicate feel. So even with this number 5 here that has the split outer pin, the top section of the outer pin is also counter milled, as you can see here, catching on that edge. So it's a nice addition, makes it a little bit more challenging, but not too much once you get it. And let's take a look at what I meant by the single serration on the center line there. Alright, let's fix these real quick. Got out of order. Alright, let's give you a close-up view. Alright guys, we got all standard key pins, spool, standard, spool, serrated, and all spooled inner drivers. That's our lock. Let's go get loaded. Thanks for watching.